The penthouse was too quiet. Naomi Carter Prescott stood in the marble foyer of her home, her suitcase still by the door, and felt something was wrong. She'd cut her Chicago business trip short by 2 days, eager to surprise Julian with the news that her architectural design pitch had been accepted. She'd imagined his proud smile, the way he'd spin her around in celebration like he used to do. But the silence that greeted her felt heavy, suffocating. She walked through the living room, her heels clicking against the Italian marble floors. Everything looked perfect as always. The housekeeper had been there that morning. The surfaces gleamed. But something was off. On the kitchen counter she found 2 wine glasses. The expensive Bordeaux Julian saved for special occasions sat half empty beside them. Her heart began to pound. Julian had told her he was working late at the office every night this week. Naomi's hands trembled as she walked toward the bedroom. The door was ajar. She pushed it open slowly. The bed was unmade, which never happened. Their housekeeper made it every morning without fail. But it was the red silk scarf on the nightstand that made her stomach drop. It wasn't hers. She didn't own anything that color, that cheap-looking fabric. Next to it lay a hotel room keycard. The Aria Hotel. Downtown. She picked up the keycard with numb fingers, reading the room number printed on the sleeve. 2847. For 5 years she'd been married to Julian Prescott. 5 years of being the perfect wife to a tech billionaire who'd built his empire from nothing. She'd supported every late night, every business trip, every missed anniversary with understanding. She'd put her own design career on hold to manage their social calendar, to host the dinner parties that landed him new investors. And this was what she got in return. Naomi walked through the penthouse like a ghost, seeing everything with new eyes. The lipstick smudge on a champagne flute in the study. The unfamiliar perfume scent lingering in the air. The way the guest bathroom showed signs of use, with towels hanging slightly askew. How long had this been going on? How many times had another woman been in her home while she was away? She found her phone and began photographing everything. The wine glasses, the scarf, the keycard. Every piece of evidence she could find. Her hands were steady now, her mind sharp and clear despite the pain crushing her chest. In the walk-in closet, she found a receipt that had fallen behind Julian's shoe rack. Cartier. A diamond bracelet purchased 3 weeks ago. She'd never received any bracelet. Naomi sat down on the closet floor, surrounded by $10,000 suits and her own designer dresses, and let herself feel it for exactly 5 minutes. The betrayal. The humiliation. The rage. The grief for the marriage she thought she had. Then she stood up, smoothed her blue silk blouse and got to work. She pulled out her laptop and began searching for lawyers. Not just any lawyers. The best divorce attorneys in the state. She compiled a list of 5 names, all women, all with reputations for getting their clients exactly what they deserved. By midnight, she'd sent encrypted emails to all 5, requesting consultations for the following day. She took the red scarf and the hotel keycard, placing them in a manila folder along with printed copies of all the photos she'd taken. Evidence. She would need evidence. Naomi checked Julian's location on the phone tracking app they'd set up years ago for safety. He was at the office, according to the little blue dot on her screen. Or at least his phone was. She called his office line. It rang 6 times before going to voicemail. She hung up and tried his cell. It went straight to voicemail. Working late. Right. Naomi walked to their bedroom window and looked out over the glittering city skyline. Somewhere out there, her husband was with another woman. Maybe at that hotel. Maybe in some other bed in some other room she didn't know about. She thought about all the signs she'd missed. Or maybe she'd seen them and convinced herself she was being paranoid. The way Julian had become distant over the past year. How he stopped asking about her day. The way he'd flinch when she touched him unexpectedly, as if his mind was somewhere else. Someone else. Her phone buzzed. A text from Julian. Working late again tonight. Don't wait up. She stared at the message for a long moment, then typed back. Okay. See you tomorrow. Let him think everything was normal. Let him think she was still in Chicago, still oblivious, still the trusting wife. Naomi opened her laptop again and began documenting everything. She logged into their bank accounts, taking screenshots of every transaction. She accessed their investment portfolios, their property deeds, every financial record she could find. Julian had always handled their money, but Naomi's name was on everything. She'd made sure of that before they married. Her father had taught her to always protect herself, and she'd listened. Now she was grateful for that advice. She found a pattern in the credit card statements. Charges to expensive restaurants she'd never been to. Hotel rooms booked on nights Julian claimed to be at business conferences. Jewelry purchases she'd never received. The evidence mounted with each click, each new document opened. At 2 a.m., she heard the elevator chime that signaled Julian's arrival. She quickly closed her laptop and slipped it under the bed. She turned off the lights and pretended to be asleep, still fully clothed under the covers. She heard him moving through the penthouse quietly, trying not to wake her. The shower ran for 15 minutes. Washing away the evidence, she thought bitterly. When he finally slipped into bed beside her, she could smell a different soap, a different shampoo. Not theirs. Naomi, he whispered. She kept her breathing steady, pretending to sleep. Good, he murmured to himself. She's asleep. In the darkness, Naomi opened her eyes and stared at the ceiling. The man lying beside her was a stranger. Maybe he always had been. But she wasn't the same woman he thought he'd married. She wasn't going to cry or beg or fall apart. She was going to make him pay for every lie, every betrayal, every moment he'd made her feel like she wasn't enough. And she was going to do it with her eyes wide open and her head held high. The morning after her discovery, Naomi woke before Julian and went through the motions of their normal routine. She made coffee, put on her workout clothes, and kissed him goodbye as he left for the office, just like always. The moment the elevator doors closed behind him, she grabbed her phone and started making calls. Her first consultation was at 10 a.m. with Rebecca Torres, a divorce attorney known for crushing unfaithful spouses in court. Rebecca's office was in a sleek downtown building, all glass and steel. Mrs. Prescott, Rebecca said, gesturing to a leather chair. Tell me everything. Naomi laid out the evidence. The photos, the receipts, the hotel keycard, the bank statements showing a pattern of deception. Rebecca's eyes gleamed with professional satisfaction. This is excellent documentation, Rebecca said. Tell me about your financial situation. My husband is worth approximately $300 million, Naomi said calmly. His company, Prescott Technologies, went public 4 years ago. But here's what most people don't know. I used $2 million of my inheritance as seed money for his startup. It's documented. I was also his business partner for the first 3 years, managing operations while he focused on product development. Rebecca leaned forward. Do you have proof of this? Every email, every contract, every bank transfer. I kept everything. Smart woman. What about infidelity evidence? Naomi pulled out her phone and showed Rebecca the tracking app. He thinks I'm in Chicago until tomorrow, but I can prove he's been lying about his whereabouts for months. That evening, while Julian was supposedly at a board meeting, Naomi watched his location ping at the Aria Hotel. Room 2847. The same number on the keycard she'd found. She sat in her car across the street, watching the hotel entrance. At 7:30 p.m. Julian's Tesla pulled up to the valet. He got out, checked his phone, and walked inside. 30 minutes later, a woman arrived in an Uber. Naomi recognized her immediately. Veronica Lang. Julian's assistant. Veronica was young, probably 26 or 27. Blonde hair, red dress, designer handbag. She walked into the hotel with the confidence of someone who thought she was getting away with something. Naomi took photos of everything. Julian arriving. Veronica arriving. The time stamps. The location. She waited 3 hours. Neither of them came out. Instead of falling apart, Naomi felt coldly determined. She drove home, let herself into the penthouse, and continued her preparations. Over the next 2 weeks, Naomi became a woman with a mission. She met with accountants who helped her understand exactly how much she was entitled to. She opened a new bank account in only her name and began transferring money from their joint accounts into it, nothing illegal, just what was rightfully hers. She contacted 3 of her old colleagues from before her marriage, people who remembered her successful career as a luxury interior designer. They welcomed her back with open arms, offering her consulting projects. She hired a private investigator to document Julian's affair. Within 5 days she had a folder full of photos. Julian and Veronica at restaurants. Entering hotels. One particularly damning photo showed them kissing in Julian's car in the parking garage of his office building. The investigator's report revealed the affair had been going on for 8 months. 8 months of lies. Naomi moved through her days like an actress playing a role. She smiled at Julian over breakfast. She asked about his day. She attended a charity gala on his arm, wearing a green silk gown and diamond earrings, playing the perfect wife one last time. You've been different lately, Julian said one night as they got ready for bed. Happier. She looked at him in the bathroom mirror, this man she'd loved for 7 years, married for 5. I've just been doing some thinking about my future, she said. Making plans. That's great, he said, barely listening as he scrolled through his phone. Probably texting Veronica. You should get back into design. You were always talented at that. The casualness of his dismissal, the way he'd encouraged her to give up her career and now acted like it had been her choice, made her jaw tighten. But she kept her voice light. I think I will. That weekend, while Julian was at a supposed golf outing with clients, Naomi met with a real estate agent. She'd been looking at properties for a week, searching for the perfect place to start her new life. She found it in a historic brownstone in the Arts District. 3 stories, original hardwood floors, massive windows that let in floods of natural light. It needed work, but Naomi could see its potential. More importantly, she could afford it with her own money, money Julian didn't know she'd been carefully saving and investing for years. I'll take it, she told the agent. But I need this kept confidential until closing. No public records until I say so. The agent nodded. Of course, Mrs. Prescott. Just Naomi, she corrected. Or better yet, use my maiden name. Naomi Carter. Saying her old name felt like taking a breath after being underwater for years. That evening, her best friend Tasha came over while Julian was out. Tasha had been skeptical of Julian from the beginning, and Naomi had distanced herself from her oldest friend because of it. Now, sitting in her designer kitchen with a bottle of wine between them, Naomi felt ashamed. I should have listened to you, Naomi said quietly. Tasha reached across the table and squeezed her hand. You loved him. There's no shame in that. The shame is all his. I found out who she is, Naomi said. His assistant. Veronica. She's been working for him for 2 years. Tasha's face hardened. That's stereotypical? Really? It gets worse. I helped pay for the company that pays her salary. Then you take him for everything he's got, Tasha said fiercely. You hear me? Everything. Naomi pulled out her phone and showed Tasha the folder of evidence. The photos, the bank statements, the investigators' reports. Oh, you're already ahead of me, Tasha said with satisfaction. That's my girl. When are you serving him? Soon. I'm waiting for one more thing. What Naomi didn't tell Tasha was that she'd discovered something else. Julian was planning to promote Veronica to vice president of operations. The same position Naomi had held unofficially during the startup years, before Julian convinced her the company needed a more experienced executive and she should focus on being his wife. He was giving Naomi's legacy to his mistress. The fury that realization sparked in her was cold and focused. She would not let this man erase her contributions. She would not let him rewrite history. She spent her evenings going through old files, finding every document that proved her role in building Prescott Technologies. She'd been more than the supportive wife. She'd been his partner, his strategist, the person who managed operations while he coded. And she was going to make sure the court knew it. On the 14th day after her discovery, Naomi received the final piece she'd been waiting for. Her investigators sent her a video. Julian and Veronica having dinner at an exclusive restaurant, discussing their future together. Once the divorce is final, we can be together properly, Julian's voice came through clearly on the recording. She'll get a fair settlement and we can move on with our lives. A fair settlement. As if 5 years of marriage and 3 years of building his company from nothing deserved just fair. Naomi watched the video 3 times, memorizing every word, every casual dismissal of their marriage. Then she called Rebecca Torres. I'm ready, she said. Let's file. That night, Naomi packed 2 suitcases with her most important belongings. Documents, jewelry, clothing, photos of her family. Everything else could be replaced or retrieved later. She looked around the penthouse that had been her home for 5 years. The designer furniture she'd chosen. The art she'd collected. The life she'd built. Or thought she'd built. Tomorrow, Julian would tell her he had another late meeting. Tomorrow, she would track him to the Aria Hotel one more time. And tomorrow night, while he was with Veronica, Naomi would walk out of this penthouse for the last time. She'd leave the divorce papers on his pillow, along with her wedding rings and a single photo from their wedding day. No note. No explanation. Just the legal documents that would destroy his perfect life the way he destroyed hers. Naomi Carter was done being Mrs. Prescott. Thursday evening arrived with clear skies and the kind of beautiful sunset that should have belonged to a better day. Naomi stood at the penthouse window, already dressed in jeans and a comfortable blue sweater, watching the city lights begin to twinkle below. Her phone buzzed with Julian's text. Important client dinner tonight. We'll be late. Love you. She stared at those last 2 words. Love you. How easily he lied. She typed back, "Have a good time." Within minutes, she watched his location on the tracking app begin to move. Not toward any restaurant in the business district. Straight downtown. Toward the Aria Hotel. Naomi had spent the day in careful preparation. Her 2 suitcases were already in her car, parked in the guest spot of the building. She'd removed her personal documents from the safe. She'd transferred the last of her individual funds to her new account. Most importantly, Rebecca Torres had filed the divorce papers that afternoon. They'd been delivered by a process server an hour ago. Naomi had left them in a crisp manila envelope on Julian's pillow, along with her engagement ring and wedding band. She'd written no letter. There was nothing left to say. On the bed beside the papers, she placed a single item, a printed photo of Julian and Veronica kissing in his car, time-stamped and dated. Let him know exactly why his marriage was ending. Now, as the sun set, Naomi walked through each room of the penthouse one final time. Not with sadness but with a strange sense of liberation. In the living room where she'd hosted countless dinner parties, she remembered the hours spent planning menus and seating arrangements to impress Julian's business contacts. She'd been so eager to help him succeed. In the kitchen, she remembered making him breakfast on Sunday mornings during their first year of marriage, when they'd been happy. Or when she thought they were happy. In his study, she looked at the photo on his desk. Their wedding picture. She was smiling so widely in that photo, so full of hope and love. She took the photo and slipped it into her purse. Not for him. For herself. To remember who she'd been and to never forget what he'd done. At 7:45 p.m., her phone buzzed with an alert. Julian's location had stopped moving. He was at the Aria Hotel. Naomi picked up her purse, took one last look at the glittering penthouse and walked out the door. She stopped at the building's concierge desk on her way out. "Mrs. Prescott," the night concierge said warmly. "Have a good evening." "Actually, I need to leave these," Naomi said, handing him an envelope. "Mr. Prescott will need his key reprogrammed. I've had mine deactivated. The building manager has the authorization paperwork." The concierge looked confused. "I don't understand." "You will," Naomi said gently. "Have a good night." She walked to her car, put her purses in the trunk and sat in the driver's seat for a moment. Her hands were shaking slightly. Not from fear. From adrenaline. Instead of driving to her new brownstone, Naomi found herself driving toward the Aria Hotel. She told herself she just wanted to see it one more time. To make it real. She parked across the street and looked up at the building. 28 floors. Room 2847. Somewhere up there, her husband was with another woman. Her phone rang. "Tasha. Did you do it?" her friend asked. "The papers are on his bed. I'm out." "Where are you?" "Sitting across from the hotel where he's with her." "Naomi, don't torture yourself." "I'm not. I'm just making sure I remember. So I never doubt this decision." She sat there for another hour, watching. At 9:30 she saw something that made her stomach turn. Julian and Veronica walked out of the hotel together, his arm around her waist, both of them laughing. They weren't even trying to hide anymore. Naomi took one last photo, then started her car. She didn't need to see any more. She drove to her new brownstone, the one Julian knew nothing about. It was empty except for an air mattress she'd had delivered, some basic supplies, and a bottle of champagne Tasha had left for her. She unlocked the door and stepped into her new life. The brownstone was quiet and dark, but it didn't feel lonely. It felt like possibility. The hardwood floors creaked under her feet. The walls needed painting. The kitchen was outdated. But it was hers. Only hers. Naomi walked from room to room, planning. This would be her office. That would be her design studio. The top floor would be her sanctuary, a bedroom with windows overlooking the city. She pulled out her phone and called the number she'd been saving. "Brighter Futures Interior Design," she said out loud, testing the name. "This is Naomi Carter speaking." Sounded right. It sounded like freedom. At 11:47 p.m., her phone began buzzing. Julian calling. She watched it ring until it went to voicemail. He called again. And again. Then the text started. "Naomi, what is this? This is a joke, right? Call me immediately. Where are you? We need to talk about this. You can't just leave." She read each one with detached interest, like she was reading about someone else's life. Then she blocked his number. More calls came through from numbers she didn't recognize. Julian using other phones. She blocked those too. Finally, a text came from Tasha. "He's losing his mind. Just got a call from someone named Rebecca Torres saying Julian's lawyers are demanding a meeting tomorrow. Girl, he's panicking. Naomi smiled. Good. Let him panic. She opened the bottle of champagne Tasha had left and poured herself a glass. She sat on her air mattress in her empty brownstone and raised her glass to the night. To new beginnings, she said to the empty room. And to never settling for less than I deserve again. Her phone buzzed one more time. A blocked number. Julian had figured out how to get past her blocks. Please, Naomi. Just talk to me. We can fix this. She stared at the message for a long moment. 5 years of marriage. 7 years together. Reduced to desperate text from a man who'd thrown it all away. She deleted the message and turned off her phone. Tomorrow the real battle would begin. The lawyers would meet. Julian would try to minimize her settlement. He would claim she was overreacting, that it was just a mistake, that they could work it out. But Naomi wasn't interested in his excuses. She'd spent 2 weeks preparing for this. She had evidence he couldn't refute. She had financial records that proved her contributions. She had a lawyer who specialized in taking unfaithful spouses apart in court. Most importantly, she had something Julian had underestimated: her own strength. She'd spent 5 years bending herself into the shape of the perfect billionaire's wife. She'd given up her career, her friends, her identity. She'd made herself smaller so he could feel bigger. No more. Naomi lay down on her air mattress, wrapped in a blanket, in her empty brownstone. Through the uncovered windows, she could see the stars. For the first time in years, she felt like herself again. And tomorrow, she would make sure Julian Prescott regretted every lie he'd ever told her. Julian Prescott walked into his penthouse at 1:15 a.m., his mind still on Veronica, already composing the text he'd send Naomi in the morning about his late business dinner. He stopped in the living room, suddenly aware of the silence. Usually some lights were on. Naomi always left a lamp burning in the hallway. Tonight, everything was dark. "Naomi?" he called out. No answer. He walked toward the bedroom, loosening his tie. Maybe she'd gone to bed early. She'd seemed fine when he left. He pushed open the bedroom door and flicked on the light. The manila envelope on his pillow seemed to glow under the overhead lights. Beside it, Naomi's wedding rings caught the light, 2 circles of white gold and diamonds that suddenly looked like accusations. Julian's heart began to pound. He picked up the envelope with shaking hands. The first thing he saw was the photo. Him and Veronica in his car, clearly kissing, with a date and time stamp. His stomach dropped. Then he saw the papers beneath it. Petition for dissolution of marriage. He read the words 3 times before they made sense. Divorce papers. Naomi was divorcing him. "No," he said out loud. "No, no, no." He grabbed his phone and called her. Straight to voicemail. He tried again. Voicemail. "Naomi, what is this? Call me. We need to talk about this." He sent text after text, his fingers clumsy on the screen. No response. Julian paced the bedroom, his mind racing. How did she find out? When did she find out? The photo was from 2 weeks ago. Had she known for 2 weeks? He started opening drawers. Her clothes were gone. Not all of them, but her favorites. Her jewelry box was empty except for the wedding rings she'd left behind. In the bathroom, her toiletries were missing. Her makeup, her perfume, her hairbrush. She hadn't just left. She planned this. Julian called her phone from the landline. It rang this time, but she didn't answer. She'd blocked his cell phone. Panic clawed at his throat. He called Tasha, Naomi's best friend. It rang once before he heard Tasha's cold voice. "You have some nerve calling me. Where is she? Is she with you? Like I'd tell you. She's done with you, Julian. And honestly, it's about time. Tasha, please. This is a misunderstanding." "A misunderstanding?" Tasha laughed harshly. "There's a photo of you kissing another woman. That's pretty clear to me. I need to talk to her." "No. What you need to do is get a good lawyer. Because Naomi has one, and from what I hear, she's about to take you apart." Tasha hung up. Julian tried every friend they had in common. No one knew where Naomi was. Or if they did, they weren't telling him. At 3 a.m., exhausted and desperate, Julian finally looked at the divorce papers properly. His blood ran cold as he read through them. Naomi wasn't asking for a simple division of assets. She was claiming she'd been a business partner in the founding of Prescott Technologies. She was asking for equity in the company. She had documentation of her $2 million investment, documentation of her role in operations during the first 3 years. How did she have all of this? He called his lawyer, waking him up. "We have a situation," Julian said. By 9 a.m., Julian sat in his lawyer's office, unshaven and still wearing yesterday's clothes. His lawyer, Martin Hendricks, reviewed the divorce papers with a grim expression. This is bad, Julian. Can we fight it? Fight what? The divorce itself or her claims about the company? Both. All of it. Martin looked at him over his reading glasses. The photographic evidence of your affair is damning. New York is a no-fault divorce state, but infidelity can affect the settlement. As for her business claims, did she invest $2 million in your startup? Julian nodded reluctantly. Was she involved in operations for the first 3 years? She helped out, but she wasn't a partner. Do you have anything in writing saying she wasn't a partner? Silence. That's what I thought, Martin said. Julian, if she has documentation and you don't, a judge is going to believe her version of events. Especially combined with evidence of infidelity. How much is this going to cost me? In terms of settlement? Conservatively, $100 million. Maybe more if she pushes for equity stakes. Julian's face went white. $100 million? You're worth $300 million. She was married to you for 5 years and claims to have helped build the company. Yes, $100 million is reasonable. That's not reasonable, that's robbery. Martin leaned back in his chair. No, Julian. Robbery is what you did to your marriage. This is consequences. The meeting with Naomi's attorney was scheduled for that afternoon. Julian had hoped to see Naomi there to talk to her to explain. But she didn't come. Only Rebecca Torres, a woman with steel gray hair and an expression that said she'd seen men like Julian 1,000 times before. My client has no interest in speaking with you directly, Rebecca said without preamble. All communication will go through me. I have a right to speak to my wife. Soon-to-be ex-wife. And no, you don't. Not if she doesn't want to speak to you. Martin cleared his throat. Let's discuss the terms. What followed was the most humiliating 2 hours of Julian's life. Rebecca laid out Naomi's case point by point. The investment. The operational role. The years of supporting his career while sacrificing her own. The infidelity. The lies. She's entitled to half of everything acquired during the marriage, Rebecca said. But given her initial investment and role in founding the company, she's asking for more. Specifically, she wants 1/3 of your net worth, plus the penthouse, plus 3 other properties she helped acquire. That's insane, Julian said. What's insane is that you thought you could cheat on your wife and face no consequences, Rebecca shot back. My client has been more than generous. She could ask for 50% of everything and probably get it. By the time Julian left the meeting, his head was spinning. He'd gone from having everything to potentially losing 1/3 of his fortune in the space of 12 hours. At the office things got worse. News of the divorce had somehow leaked. His assistant, Veronica, was conspicuously absent. He called her. She answered on the 5th ring. Julian, I can't talk right now. Where are you? Why aren't you at work? I quit. You what? I quit. This morning. I can't do this anymore. Veronica, what are you talking about? Her voice turned cold. Your wife's lawyer contacted me. They're planning to depose me. They have photos of us, Julian. Videos. Recordings of our conversations. I could lose everything if I'm dragged through this divorce. So you're just abandoning me? You're the one who said this was safe. That your wife didn't know. That we were careful. Her voice cracked. I was stupid to believe you. I'm not losing my career over this. Goodbye, Julian. She hung up. Julian sat at his desk, staring at the photo of him and Naomi that still stood there. Her smile looked different now. Less naive. More knowing. How had he been so blind? How had he not seen what he was throwing away? His phone rang. His CFO. Julian, we need to talk. 3 board members have requested an emergency meeting about the divorce. They're worried about the company's stability if you're losing equity stakes. Tell them it's under control. Is it? Because from where I'm sitting, it looks like chaos. It was chaos. His marriage was over. His mistress had left him. His company's board was questioning his leadership. And his wife, the woman he'd underestimated, was about to take him for everything he was worth. That night, Julian sat alone in the penthouse that suddenly felt too big, too empty, too full of Naomi's absence. He found a bottle of scotch and poured himself a drink. Then another. And another. His phone sat silent on the table. No calls from Naomi. No texts. Just silence. He looked at the divorce papers again, at her signature at the bottom. Naomi Carter. She'd already gone back to her maiden name. It was like she'd erased him from her life completely. Julian closed his eyes and tried to remember when things had gone wrong. When had he stopped appreciating her? When had he started taking her for granted? The truth was, he'd been taking her for granted for years. She'd made his life so easy, so comfortable, that he'd stopped seeing her as a person and started seeing her as just another piece of his perfect life. And when Veronica had flirted with him at the office, when she'd made him feel young and exciting again, he'd told himself he deserved it. He worked hard. He'd built an empire. Wasn't he entitled to a little happiness on the side? But sitting in his empty penthouse, Julian realized what a fool he'd been. Naomi had been his happiness, his partner, his home, and now she was gone. 3 months had passed since Naomi walked out of the penthouse, and she barely recognized her own life anymore. In the best possible way. She stood in the main room of her brownstone, now completely renovated, watching as workers installed the last of the custom shelving units. The space was bright and open, with exposed brick walls painted white, wide plank floors, and enormous windows that flooded the room with natural light. This was her design studio and it was perfect. "Miss Carter, where do you want these fabric samples?" one of the workers called. "In the storage room organized by color," Naomi replied. "Thank you, Miss Carter." She'd legally changed her name back 6 weeks ago. Saying goodbye to Prescott had felt like shedding a skin that never quite fit. Her phone buzzed. "Tasha. How's the studio looking?" "Like something out of a magazine. I can't believe this is actually mine." "Believe it, girl. You earned every inch of it. Are we still on for lunch?" "Absolutely. Meet you at the cafe at 1?" Naomi hung up and walked through her studio space, running her hand along the custom work table she'd designed herself. In the 3 months since leaving Julian, she'd thrown herself into building her interior design business from the ground up. Brighter Futures Interior Design had already landed 3 clients, all high-end residential projects. Word of mouth had spread quickly. Apparently, there were plenty of wealthy clients who'd rather work with a talented designer who understood their needs than with Julian Prescott's ex-wife who might gossip about them. Naomi had made it clear from day one. She was professional, discreet, and completely separate from her former life. The divorce proceedings were ongoing, but Rebecca Torres was handling everything. Naomi had only had to appear in court once, where she'd sat calmly while Julian's lawyers tried to paint her as a gold digger who'd contributed nothing to his success. Rebecca had destroyed that narrative with documentation. Emails showing Naomi's strategic decisions in the early days of Prescott Technologies. Financial records proving her investment. Testimonies from early employees who remembered her running operations while Julian coded in a cramped apartment. The judge had not been impressed with Julian's amnesia about his wife's contributions. Now Naomi's life had settled into a new rhythm. She woke up in her light-filled bedroom on the 3rd floor of the brownstone. She had coffee in her actual kitchen, not some sterile showpiece. She worked on designs that excited her. She had dinner with friends she'd neglected during her marriage. She was happy. Genuinely, surprisingly happy. Tasha was waiting at their favorite cafe when Naomi arrived, already working on a latte. "You're glowing," Tasha said as Naomi sat down. "And I don't mean that in a cliché way. You literally look 10 years younger than you did 6 months ago." "I feel younger," Naomi admitted. "Is it weird that getting divorced was the best thing that ever happened to me?" "Not when you were married to Julian Prescott." They ordered lunch, and Tasha filled her in on the latest gossip from their social circle. Apparently, Julian had shown up at a charity event last week with a different woman, someone age-appropriate this time, and had spent the entire evening looking miserable. "Good," Naomi said without heat. She genuinely didn't care anymore. "You really are over him," Tasha said wonderingly. "I thought it would take longer. I think I was over him before I even left. I just didn't realize it yet." After lunch, Naomi headed to a consultation with a potential new client. The address was in an upscale neighborhood, a historic building that was being converted into luxury condos. She arrived early and stood outside, reviewing her portfolio on her tablet, when someone bumped into her. "I'm so sorry," a male voice said. Naomi looked up into warm brown eyes. The man was tall, with dark skin and close-cropped hair, dressed casually in jeans and a green button-down shirt. He held architectural plans under one arm and a coffee in the other hand. "No harm done," Naomi said, checking to make sure her tablet was okay. "You're not hurt?" "I'm fine, really." He smiled, and Naomi noticed he had a small scar above his right eyebrow that gave his face character. "Are you here for the Bennett project?" "I am." "I'm Naomi Carter, interior designer." His face lit up. "Cameron Wright, architect. We're going to be working together." They shook hands and Naomi felt a small spark of something. Not attraction exactly. Just interest. He had an easy confidence that felt different from the aggressive alpha energy she'd lived with for years. The meeting with the client, Mrs. Bennett, went smoothly. She wanted a space that was modern but warm, sophisticated but livable. Cameron and Naomi found themselves finishing each other's sentences, building on each other's ideas. "I love this energy," Mrs. Bennett said. "You two work well together." After the meeting, Cameron walked Naomi to her car. "That was great," he said. "Your design ideas are really innovative." "Thank you. Your architectural plans are beautiful. You don't see that level of detail very often. I like to get it right." He hesitated. "Would you want to grab coffee sometime? To discuss the project, I mean. Coordinate our approaches." Naomi found herself smiling. "I'd like that." They exchanged numbers, and as Naomi drove home, she realized she felt lighter. Cameron was attractive, yes. But more than that, he treated her like a professional. He'd listened to her ideas. He hadn't tried to take credit or talk over her. After Julian, that felt revolutionary. That evening, Naomi worked late in her studio, finalizing designs for another client. Around 9, her phone rang. "Rebecca Torres." "I have news," her lawyer said. "Julian's team wants to settle." "What are their terms?" $120 million, plus the penthouse and 2 of the other properties. They're also offering you 20,000 shares of Prescott Technologies. Naomi sat back in her chair. It was more than she'd expected. What changed? Honestly, I think his board pressured him. The longer this drags out, the worse it looks for the company. And our evidence is ironclad. He wasn't going to do better in court. "What do you think I should do?" "Take it. It's a good offer and it gets you out clean. No prolonged court battle. No more depositions. You can move on with your life." Naomi thought about it. $120 million. Financial security for life. Freedom to build her business without worry. "Let's accept," she said. "With one condition. I want a clause that prevents him from ever using my name or image in connection with Prescott Technologies. My contributions stay in the record, but he doesn't get to capitalize on our relationship for publicity. I'll make it happen." After hanging up, Naomi walked to her window and looked out at the city. In a few weeks, the divorce would be final. She'd be a very wealthy woman. But more importantly, she'd be free. Her phone buzzed with a text from Cameron. "Just wanted to say again how much I enjoyed working with you today. Looking forward to our coffee meeting." Naomi smiled and typed back. "Me too." She wasn't ready for a relationship. Maybe she wouldn't be for a long time. But it felt good to be noticed, appreciated, treated as an equal. As she got ready for bed that night, Naomi looked around her bedroom. The white walls, the comfortable bed she'd chosen herself, the art she'd selected because it made her happy, not because it impressed dinner guests. This was her space, her life, her fresh start. And she'd built it all herself, from the ashes of a marriage that had nearly destroyed her. Naomi Carter had not just survived. She was thriving. Julian Prescott sat in his corner office on the 45th floor, staring at his computer screen without really seeing it. The view of the city skyline that usually filled him with pride now just reminded him of everything he'd lost. The settlement papers sat on his desk, waiting for his signature. $120 million. 20,000 shares. The penthouse. 2 vacation properties. Gone. His CFO knocked on the door. "Julian, the board meeting starts in 10 minutes. I'll be there." But he didn't move. He just kept staring at Naomi's signature on the settlement agreement. Naomi Carter. Even her name had erased him. The board meeting was brutal. 3 members had already expressed concerns about his leadership. Now, with the divorce settlement draining resources and damaging the company's reputation, they were circling like sharks. "The stock price has dropped 8% since news of the divorce broke," the chairman said. "Investors are worried about instability in leadership." "The divorce is personal," Julian said. "It has nothing to do with the company's operations." "Doesn't it?" another board member challenged. "You had an affair with an employee. That's a clear violation of our ethics policy. If you were anyone else, you'd be facing termination. Veronica was my assistant, not a direct report. She worked for you. You had power over her employment. That's textbook sexual harassment territory." Julian's jaw tightened. "She pursued me." "That's not how the law sees it," the company's legal counsel interjected. "We've already had to pay her a settlement to avoid a lawsuit." Julian's head snapped up. "What?" "She threatened to sue for sexual harassment and hostile work environment. We settled quietly for $2 million, plus a confidentiality agreement. $2 million more gone. And Veronica, who'd sworn she loved him, had taken the money and disappeared. He tried calling her dozens of times. She'd blocked his number. "This is getting out of hand," Julian said. "Yes, it is," the chairman agreed. "Which is why we're implementing some changes. Effective immediately, you're stepping down as CEO." The room went silent. "You can't do that." "We can and we are. You'll remain as Chief Technology Officer, focusing on product development. But the board has voted. We're bringing in an outside CEO to stabilize the company." Julian looked around the table. Not one person met his eyes. He'd built this company from nothing. He'd worked 18-hour days, sacrificed everything. And now they were taking it away from him. Because he'd had an affair. Because he'd underestimated his wife. Because he'd been an arrogant fool. That evening, Julian sat alone in the penthouse that would soon belong to Naomi. He'd been ordered to vacate within 30 days. He'd already started looking for a new place, but everything felt too small, too ordinary after this. His phone rang. His mother. "Julian, I just heard. Is it true you're being removed as CEO? It's a temporary restructuring. Don't lie to me. I also heard about the divorce settlement. 120 million? What were you thinking?" "I wasn't. Clearly. That girl was good for you and you threw her away for some blonde with fake hair." "Mom? Don't mom me. Naomi called me last week. She wanted to make sure I knew this wasn't personal, that she still cared about our family. She's more gracious in divorce than you ever were in marriage." His mother hung up. Julian poured himself a drink. Then another. The bottle was half empty when he finally passed out on the couch. He woke the next morning to his phone buzzing. A text from an unknown number. It was a photo. Naomi at some event, wearing a stunning red dress, laughing at something someone said. She looked radiant. Happy. More beautiful than he'd ever seen her. The text below said simply, "She's better off." Julian deleted the message, but he couldn't delete the image from his mind. Over the next 2 weeks, his life continued its downward spiral. 3 major clients pulled their contracts, citing concerns about company stability. 2 key executives resigned, taking positions at competitor firms. His new penthouse apartment, while nice, felt like a downgrade in every way. And everywhere he went, he heard whispers about Naomi. Her design firm was thriving. She'd been featured in a major architecture magazine. She'd been seen at charity events with some architect, both of them looking professional and friendly. Julian told himself he didn't care. But he looked up Cameron Wright online anyway. Successful architect. Award-winning designs. Divorced with a daughter. Stable. Respectable. Everything Julian had pretended to be but wasn't. 1 month after the divorce was finalized, Julian saw Naomi in person for the first time. It was at a tech industry gala he couldn't skip. He arrived with his date, a woman he'd met through friends who was perfectly nice and perfectly boring. And then Naomi walked in. She wore a green gown that hugged her curves, her natural hair in elegant braids, diamond earrings catching the light. Cameron Wright walked beside her, his hand on the small of her back in a gesture that was protective without being possessive. Julian's stomach dropped. "Julian, are you okay?" his date asked. "Fine," he managed. He watched Naomi work the room. She greeted people warmly, laughed easily, introduced Cameron to various contacts. She looked confident, successful, at ease. When she finally noticed Julian, her expression didn't change. She nodded politely, said something to Cameron, and they moved to the other side of the room. She hadn't glared, hadn't made a scene, hadn't even looked bothered. She'd simply acknowledged his existence and moved on. That was worse than any confrontation could have been. Julian's date kept talking, but he wasn't listening. He was watching Naomi accept an award for emerging design talent. She gave a gracious speech, thanking her clients and her team, never once mentioning her divorce or her past. When she left the stage, Cameron kissed her cheek, and Naomi smiled at him with genuine warmth. Julian felt like he'd been punched in the gut. "Excuse me," he told his date. "I need some air." He walked out to the balcony, the city lights blurring in front of him. What had he done? He traded a woman who loved him, supported him, built him up, for what? A series of meaningless affairs? An ego boost? He'd lost everything that mattered. His phone buzzed. Martin Hendricks, his lawyer. "Julian, we have a problem. Someone leaked the details of your settlement to the press. It's all over the financial news." "What?" "Your ex-wife's lawyers are denying responsibility and I believe them. But someone talked. The details are very specific." Julian closed his eyes. Great. Now everyone would know exactly how much his affair had cost him. He went back inside, collected his date and left the gala early. He'd had enough public humiliation for one night. At home, he poured himself a drink and opened his laptop. The articles were everywhere. Tech billionaire's affair costs him $120 million. Prescott settlement reveals wife's hidden business role. From partner to pariah, how Julian Prescott lost it all. The comments section was brutal. He cheated and then tried to claim she didn't contribute to his success? What a piece of work. Good for her. Take him for everything. Another rich guy who thought he was untouchable. Glad the wife got what she deserved. Julian closed the laptop. He couldn't read anymore. He looked around his new apartment. Modern furniture that felt sterile. Art he bought because it was expensive, not because he liked it. Empty rooms that echoed. This was his life now. Diminished, lonely, full of regret. And somewhere across the city, Naomi was probably laughing with Cameron, planning her next project, living a life that no longer included him at all. Julian had thought losing his company role was rock bottom. He'd thought paying the settlement was the worst thing that could happen. But sitting alone in his empty apartment, he realized the real loss was Naomi herself. The woman who'd believed in him before anyone else. The partner he'd taken for granted. The wife he'd betrayed. He'd lost the one person who truly loved him. And there was no settlement big enough to fix that. 6 months after her divorce was finalized, Naomi sat in a trendy cafe in the Arts District, reviewing design plans on her tablet. Her business had grown beyond her wildest expectations. She now had 3 associates working with her, a waitlist of clients, and had just been approached about a feature in Architectural Digest. Life was good. Sorry I'm late, Cameron said, sliding into the seat across from her. The city planning meeting ran over. No problem. I just got here myself. They'd been meeting like this once a week for months now, initially to discuss the Bennett project, but continuing even after that job was completed. Somewhere along the way, their professional relationship had developed into a genuine friendship. Cameron ordered coffee and pulled out his own tablet. I wanted to show you the final renderings for the Morrison building. I incorporated those color suggestions you made. Naomi studied the images. Cameron, this is beautiful. The way you've used natural light here, it's going to be perfect for residential spaces. That's actually what I wanted to talk to you about. The developer wants to hire a design firm to handle the interiors for the show units. I recommended you. Seriously? You're the best designer I've worked with. And before you say anything, I'm not being biased. Your work speaks for itself. Naomi felt her face warm. Thank you. That means a lot. The developer wants to meet next week. Are you available? I'll make myself available. They spent the next hour discussing the project, bouncing ideas back and forth. Naomi loved this about working with Cameron. He listened to her input, built on her ideas, treated her as an equal partner. It was refreshing after years of Julian dismissing her professional opinions. Can I ask you something personal? Cameron said as they were packing up. Sure. Do you ever regret it? The divorce, I mean. Giving up that life. Naomi didn't even have to think about it. Not for a second. That life wasn't real. It was just me playing a role I thought I had to play. You seem happy now. I am. Genuinely happy. For the first time in years, I'm exactly where I want to be, doing exactly what I want to do. Cameron smiled. Good. You deserve that. As they left the cafe together, Cameron's phone rang. Sorry, it's my daughter's school. I have to take this. Naomi waited while he talked, learning that his daughter's after-school program had been canceled and he needed to pick her up early. Go, Naomi said when he hung up. We can finish this later. Actually, Cameron hesitated. Would you want to come with me? Sophie's been asking to meet you ever since I mentioned we were working together. She wants to be a designer when she grows up. Naomi felt a flutter of nerves. Meeting his daughter felt significant somehow. But she found herself saying, I'd love to. They picked up Sophie from school, a bright-eyed 10-year-old with her father's smile and an enthusiasm that was contagious. You're Naomi? Sophie said, climbing into the back seat of Cameron's car. Dad showed me your website. Your designs are so cool. Thank you, Sophie. Your dad tells me you like to draw. I love it. I want to design houses when I'm older. They stopped for ice cream, and Sophie peppered Naomi with questions about her work, her projects, how she got started. Naomi answered honestly, finding herself charmed by the girl's genuine curiosity. Did you always know you wanted to be a designer? Sophie asked. Not always. I actually wanted to be a dancer when I was your age. What changed? I realized I loved creating spaces where people could be happy more than I loved dancing. Everyone's path is different. The important thing is to pay attention to what makes you excited. Cameron watched the two of them talk with an expression Naomi couldn't quite read. When they dropped Sophie back at Cameron's house, the girl hugged Naomi goodbye. "Can you come over again?" Sophie asked. "Maybe you could see my room and give me design advice?" "Sophie, don't pressure Naomi," Cameron said. "I'm not pressuring. I'm asking nicely." Naomi laughed. "I'd be happy to if your dad says it's okay." After Sophie went inside, Cameron walked Naomi back to her car. "Thank you for that," he said. "She really liked you. She's great. You're doing an amazing job with her. Some days I'm not so sure." He paused. "Her mom left when she was 3. Just decided she didn't want to be a mother anymore. Sophie doesn't remember her, which might be a blessing, but it's also complicated." "I'm sorry. That must have been hard." "It was. But we made it through. Sophie's the best thing in my life." There was a moment of comfortable silence. Then Cameron said, "I should probably tell you something. I enjoy spending time with you. A lot. And not just professionally." Naomi's heart skipped. "Cameron, I'm not asking for anything," he said quickly. "I know you're not long out of your divorce. I just wanted you to know. So there's no confusion about why I keep finding excuses to have coffee with you." Naomi looked at this man who'd been so patient, so respectful, so consistently kind. "I enjoy spending time with you too. But I'm not ready. Not for anything serious. I'm still figuring out who I am outside of being someone's wife." "That's fair. And honestly, I respect that." He smiled. "But when you are ready, if you're interested, I'd like to take you to dinner. A real date, not a work meeting disguised as coffee." "I'll keep that in mind." As Naomi drove home, she felt lighter. Cameron's honesty had been refreshing. No games, no pressure, just straightforward communication. It was so different from Julian, who'd hidden entire parts of himself from her. That evening, Tasha came over with wine and takeout. "So," Tasha said, settling onto Naomi's couch. "Tell me about the architect. How do you know about that?" "Girl, please. I saw the way you were smiling at your phone all week." "Spill." Naomi told her about meeting Sophie, about Cameron's confession, about her own confused feelings. "You like him," Tasha said. It wasn't a question. "I do. But I'm scared. What if I'm just attracted to him because he's the opposite of Julian? What if I'm not actually ready? Or," Tasha said, "what if he's just a good guy who treats you well, and you're allowed to enjoy that without overthinking it? When did you become so wise?" "I've always been wise. You just couldn't hear me over Julian's nonsense." They laughed, and Naomi felt grateful for her friend's unwavering support. The next week, the meeting with the developer went better than Naomi could have hoped. She landed the contract for all 12 show units in the Morrison building, her biggest project to date. Cameron texted her after, "Congratulations. Told you they'd love you." "Naomi, thank you for the recommendation. I owe you dinner." "Cameron, is that a real date or a thank you dinner?" Naomi stared at her phone for a long moment, then typed, "Let's call it a maybe date and see where the evening goes." "Cameron, I'll take it." They met at a small Italian restaurant, nothing fancy, just good food and quiet atmosphere. Cameron wore a blue shirt that brought out his eyes, and Naomi had chosen a maroon dress that made her feel confident. "So," Cameron said after they'd ordered, "tell me something about yourself that has nothing to do with work or your ex-husband." Naomi thought about it. "I used to paint. Watercolors mostly. I was pretty good at it." "Why did you stop?" "Julian thought it was a waste of time. He wanted me to focus on things that were productive." She made air quotes around the word. "That's terrible. Looking back, yeah. But at the time, I convinced myself he was right. That I should put away childish hobbies and focus on being a good wife." "Do you miss it?" "I do, actually." "Then start again. Life's too short to give up things that make you happy." They talked through dinner about art, music, books, everything and nothing. Cameron told her about growing up in a big family, about learning architecture from his contractor father, about the joy and terror of raising Sophie alone. Naomi found herself opening up about things she rarely discussed. Her parents' divorce when she was young. Her drive to create perfect spaces because her childhood home had been full of chaos. Her fear that she'd lost herself somewhere along the way. "You haven't lost yourself," Cameron said. "You're just becoming who you were always meant to be." When he walked her to her car, Naomi turned to him. "This was nice. Nice enough for a second date? Nice enough that I'm definitely interested." Cameron smiled. "Good. Because I'd really like to kiss you right now, but I don't want to rush things." Naomi made a decision. She stepped closer and kissed him, brief and sweet. When she pulled back, Cameron looked dazed. Okay then. I'm not ready for a relationship, Naomi said. But I'd like to keep seeing you. If that's okay. That's more than okay. Driving home, Naomi felt something she hadn't felt in years. Hope. Not just for a business or a house or financial security, but for genuine connection with someone who saw her, valued her, respected her. She wasn't in love with Cameron. Not yet. Maybe not ever. But she was open to the possibility, and that felt like progress. The conference room in Rebecca Torres's office was all glass and steel, with a view of the city that Naomi barely noticed anymore. She'd spent too many hours in this room over the past 7 months, dealing with Julian's lawyers and their endless attempts to reduce the settlement. Today was supposed to be the final hearing, the one that would make everything official. He's going to fight the equity stake, Rebecca warned as they prepared. His lawyers found some technicality about the original investment documents. But we have copies of everything, Naomi said. We do. But they're claiming the documents were informal, not legally binding, therefore the investment was a gift rather than a business transaction. Naomi felt her jaw tighten. That's ridiculous. We had a contract. And we'll prove that. But be prepared for them to get ugly. They're desperate. The hearing was held in a wood-paneled courtroom that felt too formal, too serious for what was essentially the death certificate of her marriage. Julian sat at the opposite table with Martin Hendricks and 2 other lawyers Naomi didn't recognize. This was the first time she'd been in the same room with her ex-husband since the gala 3 months ago. He looked thinner, older. There were circles under his eyes that even his expensive suit couldn't disguise. Naomi felt nothing. No anger, no sadness, no lingering affection. Just a vague recognition that this man had once been important to her. All rise, the bailiff announced, and Judge Patricia Morrison entered. Judge Morrison was in her 60s, with sharp eyes that missed nothing. She presided over several high-profile divorces and had a reputation for having no patience for nonsense. Let's make this simple, she said after reviewing the files. Mr. Hendricks, you're claiming the initial $2 million investment from Miss Carter was a gift, not a business transaction. Present your evidence. What followed was 2 hours of legal arguments that made Naomi's head spin. Julian's lawyers presented their case, arguing that the informality of their early documents proved the money was a personal gift between romantic partners. Then Rebecca stood up. Your Honor, I'd like to enter into evidence Exhibit A through M. These are emails between Mr. Prescott and Miss Carter during the first year of Prescott Technologies. In them, you'll see repeated references to Miss Carter's investment, her equity stake, and her role as business partner. Additionally, here are tax documents from that period showing Ms. Carter declared the investment as a business expense. Rebecca methodically destroyed every argument Julian's team made. The emails were damning, full of Julian's own words acknowledging Naomi's investment and partnership. Furthermore, Rebecca continued, we have testimonies from 3 early employees who describe Ms. Carter as Mr. Prescott's business partner. She managed operations, negotiated with vendors, and made strategic decisions while Mr. Prescott focused on product development. Julian's lawyer stood. Those employees have a bias. They're friends with Miss Carter. Actually, Rebecca said smoothly, all 3 still work for Prescott Technologies. They're Mr. Prescott's current employees, not Miss Carter's friends. Judge Morrison raised an eyebrow. Is that true, Mr. Hendricks? Julian's lawyer looked uncomfortable. We were not aware those depositions had been taken. Perhaps you should have been more thorough in your preparation, the judge said dryly. The hearing continued through lunch and into the afternoon. Julian took the stand, and Naomi watched him try to minimize her contributions. He claimed she'd just been helping out, that she hadn't really understood the business, that calling her a partner had been romantic exaggeration. Then Naomi took the stand. Miss Carter, Rebecca said, can you describe your role in the founding of Prescott Technologies? Naomi looked directly at Julian as she answered. I invested $2 million of my inheritance into the company. I managed all operations for the first 3 years, including vendor negotiations, employee hiring, financial planning, and strategic partnerships. I worked 80-hour weeks while Julian developed the product. We were equal partners. When did that change? When the company needed to hire a professional COO, Julian told me I should step back and focus on supporting his career. He said it would be better for the company to have someone with more experience in a formal role. I trusted him. And after you stepped back? I hosted events, managed his social calendar, made connections that resulted in major investments. I continued to contribute to his success, just in a different way. Did you do this willingly? I thought I was being a good wife. I thought I was supporting my husband's dreams. Now I realize I was giving up my own dreams to support his. Julian's cross-examination was brutal. His lawyer tried to paint her as vindictive, as someone who was only claiming contributions after the marriage ended. But Naomi had 7 years of documentation. Emails, photos, testimonies. The evidence spoke for itself. When Judge Morrison finally called for closing arguments, Naomi was exhausted. Rebecca stood. Your Honor, the evidence is clear. Miss Carter was not just a supportive wife. She was a business partner who sacrificed her own career to build Mr. Prescott's company. She invested her own money, her time, her expertise. She deserves more than what Mr. Prescott is willing to acknowledge. Julian's lawyer made a final, desperate argument about the settlement being excessive, about Naomi being vindictive. Judge Morrison held up a hand. I've heard enough. I'll deliver my ruling in 1 week. The longest week of Naomi's life followed. She threw herself into work, trying not to think about the outcome. But at night, lying in bed, she couldn't help but worry. What if the judge sided with Julian? What if all her documentation wasn't enough? Cameron took her to dinner the night before the ruling, sensing she needed distraction. Whatever happens tomorrow, he said, you're going to be okay. You've built a successful business. You have friends who love you. You have a life that's entirely yours. I know. But I need the judge to see the truth. I need Julian to admit what he did. He already has, in every way that matters. His lawyers wouldn't be fighting so hard if they didn't know you were right. The next day, Naomi sat in the courtroom with Rebecca, waiting for Judge Morrison. All rise. The judge entered, her face unreadable. I've reviewed all the evidence, testimonies, and documents presented in this case. The evidence overwhelmingly supports Miss Carter's claims that she was not merely a supportive spouse, but an active business partner who made substantial financial and operational contributions to Prescott Technologies. Naomi's heart pounded. Therefore, I'm ruling in favor of Miss Carter. The settlement of $120 million stands, plus the agreed-upon properties. Additionally, I'm awarding Miss Carter an additional 30,000 shares of Prescott Technologies, bringing her total to 50,000 shares, in recognition of her founding contributions. Julian's face went white. Furthermore, Mr. Prescott will cover all legal fees for both parties. This case is closed. The gavel came down. Naomi sat frozen for a moment, then felt Rebecca squeeze her hand. You won, her lawyer said quietly. Completely. They walked out of the courtroom, leaving Julian and his lawyers behind. In the hallway, Rebecca pulled Naomi aside. That was a decisive victory. Judge Morrison didn't just rule in your favor, she sent a message. 50,000 shares is significant. You're now one of the largest minority shareholders in Prescott Technologies. I don't want anything to do with that company. You don't have to be involved. But those shares will continue to increase in value. It's your insurance policy, your proof that your contributions mattered. Outside the courthouse, Tasha was waiting with a huge bouquet of flowers. My best friend, the vindicated businesswoman, Tasha said, hugging her tight. I can't believe it's really over. It's over. And you won. Not just legally but in every way that counts. That evening, Naomi sat in her studio, looking at the framed photo she'd kept from her wedding day. She studied her younger self, so hopeful and naive, and felt a wave of compassion for that woman. I'm sorry I let him make you smaller, she said to the photo. But we made it through. Then she took the photo and put it in a drawer. Not thrown away but put away. Part of her past but not her present. Her phone buzzed. Cameron. Heard the news. Congratulations. You deserved this victory. Naomi smiled and typed back. Thank you. Want to help me celebrate? Always. The legal battle was over. She'd won her case, her settlement, her validation. But more importantly, she'd won something bigger. Her sense of self-worth, her confidence, her belief that she deserved better. And that was a victory no judge could have given her. The morning after the final court ruling, Naomi woke up feeling different. Lighter. Like she'd been carrying a weight she hadn't fully acknowledged until it was gone. The divorce was complete. The settlement was final. Julian Prescott was officially her past. Now she could focus entirely on her future. She made coffee in her bright kitchen, sunlight streaming through the windows, and opened her laptop. Her email was flooded with congratulations from friends, colleagues, and even a few former associates of Julian's who'd secretly been rooting for her. One email stood out. It was from Architectural Digest, offering her not just a feature but a multi-page spread about her design philosophy and her brownstone transformation. They wanted to call it From Ashes to Architecture. One woman's journey to reclaim her creative voice. Naomi responded immediately. Yes, absolutely yes. Her phone rang. The developer Cameron had introduced her to. Miss Carter, I have a proposition for you. We're breaking ground on a new luxury residential complex in Manhattan. 20 floors, 40 units. We want you as the lead interior designer for the entire project. Naomi's hand trembled slightly. That's a massive project. We know. But after seeing your work on the Morrison Show units, we're confident you're the right person. And honestly, your story is inspirational. The press loves a comeback narrative. They discussed timelines, budgets, and creative control. By the end of the call, Naomi had landed the biggest contract of her career. She immediately called Cameron. They offered me the Skyline Tower project, she said breathlessly. That's incredible. I knew they would. Cameron, this is huge. This could put my firm on the map nationally. You put your firm on the map. This is just everyone else catching up. That afternoon, Naomi met with her 3 associates to discuss expanding the business. They'd need to hire more staff, rent additional studio space, maybe even open a second office. This is really happening, her senior associate said. We're going big time. We're going professional time, Naomi corrected. I don't want to lose what makes us special. We create spaces that tell stories, that reflect the people who live in them. That doesn't change just because we're taking on bigger projects. That weekend, Cameron invited her to his house for dinner. Sophie answered the door, practically bouncing with excitement. Naomi, Dad's making his famous pasta. Come see my room. I painted one wall blue like you suggested. Naomi let herself be pulled upstairs. Sophie's room had been transformed. The blue accent wall made the space feel bigger and more mature without losing its youthful energy. Sophie, this looks amazing. You did this yourself? Dad helped. But I chose everything. And look. She pointed to a corner where she'd set up a small drafting table. My design corner. I've been sketching house ideas. She showed Naomi a notebook full of surprisingly thoughtful drawings. The girl had real talent. These are really good. You have a natural eye for proportion. Sophie beamed. Dinner was relaxed and easy. Cameron had made homemade pasta and salad, and they ate at his kitchen table, talking and laughing. Sophie told Naomi about school, her friends, her dreams of going to design school someday. What happened to wanting to be a dancer? Cameron teased. Dad, that was last year. I've evolved. After dinner, Sophie went to do homework and Cameron and Naomi cleaned up together. She really likes you, Cameron said, washing dishes while Naomi dried. I really like her. She's smart and creative and funny. She needs good role models. Women who can show her what it looks like to build something meaningful. They finished the dishes in comfortable silence, then moved to the back porch. It was a cool evening and Cameron had turned on the outdoor heaters. Can I tell you something? Naomi said. Always. I'm scared. Everything is happening so fast. The business, the settlement, this thing between us. What if I'm not ready? What if I mess it up? Cameron took her hand. You're one of the strongest people I know. You left a marriage that was destroying you. You built a business from scratch. You fought for what you deserved and won. You're more than ready for whatever comes next. But what about us? What if I'm not ready for a relationship? Then we'll move at whatever pace feels right for you. There's no rush, Naomi. I'm not going anywhere. She looked at this man who'd been so patient, so understanding, so consistently supportive. How are you real? I'm just a guy who recognizes an amazing woman when he meets one. Naomi leaned in and kissed him, longer this time with more certainty. When they pulled apart, Cameron was smiling. That was nice. It was. So where does this leave us? Let's just keep doing what we're doing. Seeing each other, getting to know each other, letting things develop naturally. I can work with that. Over the next 2 months, Naomi's life settled into a new rhythm. She was busier than she'd ever been, managing multiple projects, growing her team, appearing in media features. But she also made time for things she'd neglected. Painting watercolors in the evenings, having long dinners with Tasha, taking Sophie to art museums. And seeing Cameron, who fit into her life with surprising ease. They were taking things slowly, but there was an intimacy growing between them that felt genuine and earned. One evening, as Naomi worked late in her studio, she got a call from an unknown number. Against her better judgment, she answered. Naomi. Julian's voice. She should have hung up. But something made her listen. I'm not supposed to contact you, he said. The settlement prohibits it. But I needed to tell you something. You have 30 seconds. I'm sorry. For everything. You deserve better than how I treated you. You deserve better than me. Naomi sat in silence for a moment. You're right. I did. I read the Architectural Digest feature. Your work is beautiful. You're talented. I should have supported that instead of asking you to give it up. Yes, you should have. Are you happy now? I am. Genuinely happy. Good. You deserve that. He paused. I heard you're seeing someone. That architect. That's none of your business. I know. I just want you to know that I'm glad. That you found someone who treats you right. Julian, why are you calling? Because I'm in therapy and my therapist says I need to make amends. And because you deserved an apology I never gave you. Okay. You've apologized. Don't call again. I won't. Goodbye, Naomi. She hung up and sat staring at her phone. She felt oddly calm. Julian's apology didn't change anything. It didn't erase the betrayal or the pain. But it did give her a sense of closure. He'd admitted what she already knew. She deserved better all along. The next day, Naomi met with a financial advisor to discuss her settlement money. She'd already invested a significant portion, but she wanted to do something meaningful with the rest. I want to start a foundation, she told the advisor, to provide grants for young women from underprivileged backgrounds who want to pursue careers in design, architecture, or creative fields. That's a wonderful idea. I had opportunities because of my family's money. Not everyone does. I want to change that. They spent 2 hours planning the foundation structure, its mission, its initial funding. By the end of the meeting, Naomi felt more excited than she had about anything in months. She'd taken her pain and turned it into something that could help others. That felt like the ultimate victory. That weekend, Cameron, Sophie, and Naomi went to an outdoor art festival. They walked through rows of vendors, ate overpriced festival food, and laughed at Sophie's running commentary on the artwork. That sculpture looks like a confused octopus, Sophie declared. It's supposed to be abstract, Cameron said. It's abstractly confused. Naomi bought a small watercolor from a young artist who reminded her of herself at that age. Hopeful, talented, nervous about putting her work into the world. This is beautiful, Naomi told her. Keep creating. Don't let anyone tell you your art doesn't matter. The girl's face lit up. Thank you. That means so much. As they walked away, Cameron squeezed Naomi's hand. You're changing lives. I'm trying. You're succeeding. That evening, after they dropped Sophie at a friend's house for a sleepover, Cameron invited Naomi to stay for dinner. Just us, he said. No kid buffer. Is that okay? That's more than okay. They cooked together, drank wine, talked about everything and nothing. After dinner, they moved to the couch, and Naomi found herself relaxing into Cameron's arms. This feels right, she said quietly. It does. I'm not ready to rush into anything, but I want you to know that I'm falling for you. Slowly, carefully, but definitely. Cameron kissed her forehead. I'm falling for you too. And slow is perfect. We have all the time in the world. Naomi closed her eyes, feeling safe and content. Her past was behind her. Her future was bright and full of possibility. And for the first time in her adult life, she was exactly where she wanted to be. 1 year and 2 months after walking out of her marriage, Naomi stood in front of her bathroom mirror, adjusting the red silk dress she'd chosen for tonight's charity gala. It was the same event where she'd seen Julian with Veronica, where she'd felt her world crumbling. Now, looking at her reflection, she saw a completely different woman. Confident. Successful. Happy. Her intercom buzzed. Cameron was downstairs. She grabbed her clutch, took one last look around her brownstone, the space that had become her sanctuary, and headed out. Cameron was waiting in the lobby, dressed in a sharp black suit, and his face lit up when he saw her. You look stunning, he said, kissing her cheek. You clean up pretty well yourself. In the car, Cameron took her hand. Are you ready for this? I know this gala has history. I'm more than ready. This year, I'm attending as myself, not as someone's wife. That's everything. The gala was held in the same luxury hotel, the same ballroom. But Naomi felt no anxiety as she walked in. She was here to accept an award for emerging business leaders, to showcase her design work, to support the charity. What Julian might or might not be doing was irrelevant. Naomi. A voice called out. One of her clients, waving from across the room. She spent the next hour networking, introducing Cameron to colleagues, discussing upcoming projects. Several people congratulated her on the Architectural Digest feature, which had come out the week before. Your brownstone is gorgeous, one woman gushed. The way you transformed that space is inspiring. Thank you. It was definitely a labor of love. She was mid-conversation when she felt eyes on her. She turned and saw Julian across the room. He was with a woman Naomi didn't recognize, someone closer to his age this time. But what struck her was how diminished he looked. Not just physically, though he'd clearly lost weight. There was something defeated about his posture, the way he held himself. Their eyes met briefly. Julian nodded once, a gesture that might have been acknowledgement or apology or simply recognition. Naomi nodded back, then returned to her conversation as if he'd been a stranger. Because, in all the ways that mattered, he was. The award ceremony began after dinner. Naomi was one of 5 recipients being honored for business innovation and community impact. Our next honoree, the host said, transformed personal hardship into professional triumph. After leaving a high-profile marriage, she rebuilt her career from the ground up, creating a design firm that prioritizes both aesthetic excellence and social responsibility. Please welcome Naomi Carter. Naomi walked to the stage, aware of the applause, but focused on her message. She'd prepared remarks about resilience and reinvention, but standing at the podium, she decided to speak from the heart. "A year ago I was lost," she began. "I'd spent years being someone I thought I was supposed to be, and I'd forgotten who I actually was. Walking away from that life was terrifying. Starting over was hard. But it was also the best decision I ever made." She looked out at the audience, finding Cameron's face. He was smiling, proud. Success isn't about how much money you make or how perfect your life looks from the outside. It's about building something authentic, something that reflects your values and your vision. It's about treating people with respect and dignity. It's about remembering that we all deserve to be seen and valued for who we really are. She glanced briefly at Julian, who was staring at his plate. So to anyone who feels stuck, who feels like they've lost themselves, who feels like they're playing a role instead of living a life, I want you to know, it's never too late to start over. It's never too late to choose yourself. The applause was thunderous. Naomi accepted her award, a crystal sculpture that caught the light and scattered it in rainbow patterns, and returned to her seat. Cameron leaned over. "That was incredible. I meant every word." After the ceremony, people kept approaching Naomi. Former acquaintances who'd been part of Julian's social circle, now treating her with new respect. Business leaders who wanted to talk about potential collaborations. Young women who thanked her for her honesty. "You inspired me," one young woman said, tears in her eyes. "I've been in a relationship where I keep making myself smaller. Hearing you speak made me realize I don't have to keep doing that." Naomi hugged her. "You don't. You deserve to take up space in your own life." Later, as the gala was winding down, Naomi excused herself to get some air. She stepped onto the hotel's terrace, breathing in the cool night air. "Naomi." She turned. Julian stood a few feet away, hands in his pockets, looking uncertain. "I don't want to bother you," he said quickly. "I just wanted to say your speech was powerful. And your award was well-deserved. Thank you. I've been following your career. Your design firm is doing really well." "It is." An awkward silence stretched between them. "I'm sorry," Julian finally said. "For everything. I know I said that on the phone, but I wanted to say it in person. You deserved better than how I treated you." Naomi looked at her ex-husband and felt nothing but a vague sadness for time wasted. "I did deserve better. But I'm grateful now. Because leaving you led me to the life I was supposed to have all along. You seem happy." "I am. Genuinely happy. The architect. He's a good guy. He's an excellent person. But more importantly, I'm a happy person regardless of whether he's in my life or not. That's the difference. I don't need someone else to complete me anymore." Julian nodded slowly. "I'm glad you found that. What about you? Are you doing okay?" "I'm managing. Lost the CEO position as you probably heard. Rebuilding my reputation. Trying to be better." He paused. "My therapist says I have a lot of work to do on myself." "That's good. Everyone should work on themselves. I heard about your foundation. The one for young female designers. That's really admirable. I wanted to do something meaningful with the settlement. Turn something painful into something positive. You always were better than me. In all the ways that mattered." Naomi didn't disagree. "I should get back inside." "Of course. Thank you for talking to me." She walked toward the door, then paused. "Julian?" "Yeah. I forgive you. Not because you deserve it, but because I deserve peace. I hope you find whatever it is you're looking for." She left him standing on the terrace and returned to the ballroom, to Cameron, who was waiting with a smile, to the life she'd built from the ashes of her old one. 2 weeks later, Naomi hosted a launch party for her foundation. The event was held at her design studio, which had been transformed for the evening. 20 young women had received the first round of grants, and they were all there, excited and grateful. Sophie was there too, helping Cameron set up the display of the recipients' work. "This is so cool," Sophie said. "When I'm older, can I apply for one of these grants?" "You can," Naomi said. "Though I have a feeling you're not going to need it. You're incredibly talented." Cameron walked over, wrapping an arm around Naomi's waist. "This is amazing. Look at what you've created." Naomi looked around the room. Young women networking, sharing ideas, supporting each other. Creating the kind of community she'd wished she'd had when she was starting out. "I spent years making myself smaller," Naomi said. "Now I get to help other women take up all the space they deserve." Tasha clinked her glass, calling for attention. "I'd like to make a toast. To my best friend who took the worst thing that ever happened to her and turned it into something beautiful. Naomi, you inspire me every single day." Everyone raised their glasses. To Naomi. That night, after everyone had left and the studio was quiet, Naomi stood at the window looking out at the city lights. Cameron came up behind her, resting his chin on her shoulder. "What are you thinking about?" he asked. "How far I've come. A year ago, I was starting over with nothing but my anger and determination. Now I have a successful business, a foundation, a beautiful home, amazing friends." She turned to face him. "And someone who sees me really sees me for who I am." "I love who you are," Cameron said simply. "I love who I am too. That's what I'm most proud of. I finally love myself enough to never settle for less than I deserve again." "You deserve everything." "I know. And I'm going to keep building a life that reflects that." They kissed, gentle and sweet, two people who'd both survived difficult pasts and found their way to something real. Later, alone in her brownstone, Naomi opened her laptop and started writing. She'd been approached by a publisher about writing a book, a memoir about rebuilding after betrayal. She hadn't decided if she'd do it, but tonight she felt inspired. She typed, "Chapter 1, The Day I Chose Myself." The words flowed easily, honestly. Her story wasn't about revenge or bitterness. It was about transformation. About learning that the most important relationship you'll ever have is the one with yourself. Naomi wrote until midnight, then closed her laptop and got ready for bed. Tomorrow she had 3 client meetings, a lunch with Sophie to discuss the girls' portfolio development, and dinner with Cameron and his family. Her calendar was full, but not overwhelmingly so. She'd learned to set boundaries, to protect her time and energy, to say no to things that didn't serve her. She'd learned after everything that she was enough all by herself. Everything else was just beautiful addition to an already complete life. As she turned off the lights, Naomi's phone buzzed with a text from one of her grant recipients. "Thank you for believing in me. You changed my life." Naomi smiled in the darkness. She changed her own life too. And that was the greatest triumph of all.